If I know one thing about insurance agents, it's that I see one main thing that separates the winners from the mediocre. I don't want to call them losers because they are definitely not. But what I do see is that there is one main thing that when insurance agents do this, they write a significant amount of new business insurance. However, the opposite is also true. That those agencies that agents that struggle at this or just never get around to it, I would say write only about 50% less than what agents that do. In fact, some agents that do this write twice as much, 3 times as much new business insurance as those agents that never get around to doing this. Even though they know they should, they just don't get around to it, and it really hinders their ability to write a lot of new business. What could that one thing be? That's what we're going to talk about today on this episode of the Millionaire Insurance Producer Podcast. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody, to the Millionaire Insurance Producer Podcast. My name is Charles Specht. I am your host, and it is good to be with you. It's been a little while, and so I'm glad to actually come back and start putting out a series of new videos, new episodes on the podcast so that we can all stay relevant to the things that need to be done in order to write more business. I want you, my friends, to be more successful at writing new business. I'm sure you want that as well. But there are a number of reasons why maybe that's not happening for you. So in this particular topic today, I see this often. In fact, I tell it to my one-on-one coaching clients so very often. I tell them to stop doing whatever else you're doing and get this one thing done. Because if you don't get this one thing done, it's just going to hinder you from being able to have any kind of, success that is replicatable, and you can expect it over the course of time. It is a really big issue. But before I tell you what it is, I want you to think about what your number one problem is. This morning in my mastermind, I have a mastermind with a group of insurance professionals from around the United States and Canada, and it's called the 12X Commission Mastermind. I was on there with my mastermind today, and I thought, you know what? I need to make a podcast episode out of this topic just because it's so important. I asked a number in there. I said, look, I want you each to think about it. And I'm going to tell you what the question is in just a minute, but I want you just to realize as you're listening to me that the answer is different for each person. It's different because we all have our own unique strengths and weaknesses. It's different if you are going after a certain class of business, your micro niche. It's different for each agency, small, medium, large, what type of leadership you have there, what types of technology and the carrier access that you have, and what kind of services you can provide, as well as your geographic territory. There's just a lot of different ways in which to answer this. But frankly, I think there's probably like 2, maybe 3 answers that you guys might throw at me if you were able to actually tell me your answer. But here's the question. What is the one main thing that is stopping you from having the new business sales success that you know you should be having? What is the one main problem? Of all the things that's happening out there, what's the one thing that is the hurdle? What's the one thing that is the sort of the end that is like causing you to not being able to actually achieve the results that you want? It's a dead end. What's the one thing? What's the one main problem you have? All right. Now, here are some of the things that people tell me. They tell me that they can't get past gatekeepers. And I agree. That's a problem. If you can't get past gatekeepers, you're going to struggle. You either need to figure out how to get past the gatekeepers, go around the gatekeeper, or pick a different micro niche. But yeah, gatekeepers is a struggle. Others might say, you know what, they are struggling to find the time to prospect. And I would say, yeah, that's a big problem. I'm not saying that's not a small problem. That's a very big problem. In fact, there's nothing I can help you with if you can't figure out where to get time. We can look at time management, but I mean, that's not what I'm here for. So you need to be able to figure out where you're going to have the time. So people will tell me that. They'll say, well, if I could just get more at-bats with a prospect. In other words, if I could just set more appointments, I would probably write more business. And I say, of course you would write more business. If you never changed anything in your entire process, but you set more appointments, then whatever your typical hit ratio is, you're going to have a hit ratio of that additional set appointments as well. And so you'll write more business. So yeah, absolutely. We want to set as many more additional new business appointments as you possibly can, because you will write more new business. Now, there are things that you can do to increase your hit ratio, your close ratio on those accounts, but we want to not just write more or set more appointments, we want to also increase the close ratio. But yeah, we want more at-bats. Who doesn't? Absolutely everybody does. Well, what could it be? What could it be? And I'll kind of I'm going to tell you what the answer is now. And you might say, I don't struggle with that. And I'll say, I bet you did, and you still might. Because this one thing, insurance agencies, I think, know that this is important, but man, it is amazing to me. Most insurance agencies do not help their producers with this. They put it on the shoulders of the producer to figure it out, and that's why these producers struggle. And it comes down to this. Here's something that I say so very often, and I want you to tattoo it on the inside of your eyelids so that every time you blink, you remember this, because I want you to change your outlook on this and what you're doing about it. But it is this: your success will rise and fall based upon the maturity of your prospect list. Your success will rise and fall based upon the maturity of your prospect list. And here's what I mean by this. So many times I can talk to a brand new insurance agent who's just getting into it, another insurance agent who's been in the business a while. They've got a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 book of business, and if they know how to sell, they're just a bit sort of like on cruise control, and they're trying to figure out how to pivot, and go a little bit bigger. As well as other agents who have $1 million plus book of business, and they're not necessarily trying to pivot, but they're trying to just go bigger. Okay, so lots of different people. It is amazing to me how many people who struggle to write business, have low hit ratios, can't set enough appointments, do not have a matured prospect list. And they are thinking that it's for some other reason than that. Versus when I'm talking to an insurance agent who has a matured prospect list, and I'll define maturity in just a moment, but who has a matured prospect list, they don't struggle setting appointments. They're not the ones who are struggling figuring out how to set appointments and then close the business. They are not the ones who are doing that. They need help in other areas, but it's not typically in the maturity of the prospect list. And here's what I mean. Lots of times an agency will hire a new producer, and they'll say, we are so excited that you're here. Here's your office. There's a laptop for you. They might even still give you some old business cards. I don't know what you do with those things, but here's some business cards. And go ahead, sell some insurance. Go find somebody to sell something to. And wow, that is setting somebody up for failure, right? I mean, how does, for example, a brand new insurance agent in space, how do they know what to go after? How do they know what is a good account? How do they know what the carriers want to write? How do they know what the differentiation would be? How do they know what the problems are in the space? How do they know what size of an account would be a good size? Because there are accounts that are too small, and there's frankly accounts that are too big that they're not going to be able to set enough appointments in order to win enough business over the course of time so as not to get fired. So how are they supposed to know this? They don't. And frankly, the same thing goes with agents who sort of limp along and struggle along, and they eventually get a $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 book, and they've got lots of tiny accounts, and they're just trying to figure out what to do next. And you know what? Here's the thing, is that most insurance agencies do not help producers put together prospect lists, and that, listen to me, I said that is the thing that I see insurance agencies doing the worst thing possible for these producers that they bring on. You are essentially guaranteeing someone's failure, or at least really putting an anchor on their feet so that they can't run fast and write a decent amount of new business. They don't know how to put together a prospect list. And even if they put together the prospect list, it is not a matured prospect list. And so the lack of maturity in that prospect list means they do not write a lot of accounts because they can't set a lot of appointments. Here's what I mean by that. If an insurance agent doesn't know what to go after, usually they put together this very generalist list, lots of different stuff. And you know what? It just doesn't work because they don't know how to differentiate themselves. But when I'm thinking about maturity, I'm going to kind of list out a few things here, but maturity can mean a few different things, but I specifically am talking about X dates. X dates. X dates. So, most insurance agents will usually say they don't prospect enough. They wish they could prospect more. They might be busy, or maybe it's an excuse they don't prospect. Well, then let's just say they do prospect. Are they prospecting on the right accounts at the right time? And my answer, for the most part, is likely no. In fact, I would tell you that probably around 85% of insurance agents out there do not have a matured prospect list. And so quite likely, listen to me, quite likely they are calling on accounts that aren't even in the renewal business cycle. And so they're not even thinking in their heads, I want to meet with insurance agents. It's time for me to get quotes and so forth. They're not even in that mindset, so that when you call them, they're not interested in talking about insurance. They don't renew for a while. They don't even want to meet with you. And so the limited amount of time that you have or are willing to invest in actual prospecting, the vast majority of insurance agents out there are calling on things that nobody's interested in talking about insurance or meeting with them. Literally, isn't this foolish? This is foolish. Why not? Then just take a few weeks and just tell your producers, don't even call on anything yet. Like, don't even try to set appointments. What I want you to do is let's pick a micro niche, and now we're going to put together an initial list, an initial prospect list, and then we're really just going to dive into it and try and get it matured to the point in which we get a few pieces of data. Okay? I refer to this as data mining. We need to mine the data that we need in order to have a very matured and robust prospect list that is going to guarantee our success going forward. One of the first things is that you need to know when these things come up for renewal. Period. If you don't have it, then I would say you or your agency need to purchase one of these, lists that have X dates for the accounts from one of these companies out there that does it. It might not be cheap, but I'll tell you, it sure is not as expensive as you not writing new business. I'm telling you that much. You know what? Somebody else spent the time putting together the list. At least start with that. Start with it. You can get the numbers for property and casualty. You can get it for EB and so forth, but you start with something. But if you don't have it, then what you need to do is you need to plow through that list as many times as possible, finding out when do these accounts come up for renewal. Ask the gatekeeper and the decision maker, when does it come up for renewal? Literally just ask, when do the insurance policies actually come up for renewal? When does the EB plan come up for renewal? Find that out. Again, that doesn't mean that you can't try and set an appointment right there on the telephone. In fact, I encourage you to do that. It's just that I know the hit ratio of appointment setting it's got to be about a third to a quarter of what it is if you were calling on stuff that's actually in the renewal cycle. All right, so I'm a P&C guy for the most part. And so I think like property and casualty, that's normally, I would say, a 90-day window, maybe 100, 120 days, where the insurance carriers will accept submissions from the agents. But frankly, most insurance buyers are not meeting with competing agents usually till around 30 to 60 days before the account comes up for renewal. Okay, so you got a short window there where they're like, okay, I'm willing to talk about this. And normally, they're usually not willing to meet with other agents until something happens where the incumbent agent or the servicing team sends them an email or gives them a call to get renewal exposures from them. That sort of sets off something in their mind like, okay, it's insurance time. I got to start thinking about this. Maybe I need to meet with some other agents to get quotes. But normally, before that, most insurance buyers are just tuned out. They're not looking into actually meeting with anybody. And if you, my friends, are only working on stuff that you don't know when the X date is, then if we're working on stuff that's a 90 days, that's 3 months, then on average, only about 25% of the prospects that you're calling on will even be coming up for renewal in the next 90 days. Okay, so only a quarter. That means that likely 3/4 are just going to tune you out because they're not interested. And so you're wasting your few spare valuable moments of prospecting on people and businesses that weren't going to even meet with you in the first place. I'm telling you, this is exactly why I see this particular issue as the difference between insurance agents who struggle versus those who accelerate, versus those who actually write a lot. And so I've been working with insurance agents for 15 years now. And I can almost tell you on point after like the first 15 minutes of a conversation if I feel like this insurance agent is going to be able to write a lot of business or if this is going to be a struggle for them for a little while, if not for a long while. And it usually boils down to this one particular issue. How are you going to put together a prospect list that is going to, for the most part, guarantee your success? If your success rises or falls on the maturity of your prospect list, then it would be foolish of you, really foolish, simply just to leave it up to chance to never get around to it. I mean, why are you like flipping coins, hoping that this whole career works out for you? Are you flipping coins that you're going to be able to differentiate yourself in the marketplace? Are you flipping coins on what it is to say to your prospects? Are you flipping coins just by going through a quoting process, throwing mud against the wall and hoping that something sticks? I mean, I hope not. I hope not. Because that's the amateur hour. And you, my friends, you don't want to be the amateur hour. That's why you're listening to the Millionaire Insurance Producer Podcast, because you want $1 million book of business. You don't want to play, patty cake. You don't want to throw mud against the wall to see what sticks. You want to shorten the learning curve here. You want to shorten the amount of time that's needed in order to go from set appointment to bound. Set appointment to sign broker record letter. Like, we want to actually accelerate at it. And I'm telling you, if you don't have a matured prospect list, I ask you, what are you doing? What are you doing? So if you don't have a matured prospect list, then I would tell you this. I don't know what else you got going on this week, next week. Scrap it. Scrap it. Throw it off to the side, because this week and next week, we are going to create a prospect list that is going to be as robust as possible with information like email addresses, cell phone numbers, decision maker, X date. I mean, at least you need to have those basic pieces of information to have a relatively matured prospect list. I don't care what carrier they're with right now or what agent they're with right now. If you find out that data, that's perfect. Great, find it out, but we don't need it necessarily to have success. There are certain things that I feel you need to have. You need to have, when did the policies actually come up for renewal, or the plan? Who is the person that handles it? That's the decision maker. Then get their email address, because now you can do email marketing. You can bypass a gatekeeper and see if you can get a cell phone number. Because if you can get a cell phone number, then you don't have to call a gatekeeper anymore, and you can contact your decision maker right off the bat. But those basic 4 pieces of information, the more that you have those 4 pieces of information on all the prospects that you have on your list, I would tell you it's almost like we can forecast how much new business you're going to write based upon how much data you have on your prospects based upon those 4 pieces of information. Now, there's 2 other things that sort of go along with this matured prospect list that you need to work on. Again, X date, decision maker, email, cell phone number. Get those pieces of information. Just call the account, cold call. By the way, who there handles the insurance? I'll send him an email. That way he can take a look at my program. If he's interested in it, he can respond to me. If not, he can just delete it. What's the email? I'll go ahead and email to him. Just ask the gatekeeper for this basic information. Okay. Now there's those 4 things you want, like email, X date, decision maker, email, cell phone. But there's 2 other parts to this prospect list that are going to make or break you. And I see it. It's like the lack of maturity in the prospect list results in little money. If you like having a small bank account, then keep doing what you're doing. But if you want to grow your book of business, you better work on this information right now. Here's the second part of the prospect list that I see that's a problem, is that you just don't have enough prospects. Or frankly, you've got too many prospects. But normally the issue is that you don't have enough. It's amazing how many times I work with somebody and okay, I got 36 prospects. I'm like, yeah, well, I can probably work through those in about an hour and a half. Now what are you going to do? I mean, I can call those 36 accounts in an hour and a half. Then what's next? 36, you're telling me that's your number of prospects? That's not your prospect list. That is what you can do in about an hour and a half on Tuesday. So I will normally tell insurance producers, I want to see at least a minimum of 800, but I'd like to see 1,200. 1,200 prospects. That's what I want. That's what I want. If I'm your agency manager or leader, that's what I want. I want to see a list of 1,200. Now, It's different. Like I'd say that's my sort of number in my head, but it's different for each person, each micro niche, each geographic territory. Um, if you're going after something very narrow, then you might not have 1,200. That's then, if you're not able to get enough prospects on your list, you have to do one of two things. You either have to expand the geographic territory. Let's say you're going after, condo associations down in Florida. Okay, there's probably a lot of them. Or maybe you're only doing it in Miami County. Well, Dade County rather. Well, then you might need to expand the territory so that you can get more on your list. Or what normally has to happen is, I would say, then we increase it to 2 micro niches rather than just 1. But I would like to see you expand the geographic territory and maybe have 2. Don't necessarily think you only have to have 1. I would say 2 is doable. I wouldn't mess with 3. You can become an expert in 2 different things. It's not going to happen right off the bat, but you can do it. I would say you need to have 1 for sure. 2 is okay. 3 is terrible. But you need to have 800 to 1,200 as a minimum so that you can work these things. Because again, if we're working on a 90-day window, on average, if I've got 1,200 prospects, then just sort of like average speaking, that should be about 100 a month are renewing in any particular given month. So if I'm working a 3-month period at any given time, I'm working on 300 accounts at any given time on any particular month. I'm calling 300 accounts. I am emailing them. I'm trying to stop into as many as I possibly can. Every month that goes by, that last month falls off and another month comes on. So I'm constantly working on 300 at any given time. That is doable and manageable. Now that number might be different for each person. For me, I want 1,200. If you're trying to figure out how many should be, say, well, start with 1,200. I'd rather you have more prospects than not enough. Now, some people get a list of like, say, 3,000, 4,000. And I say, there's no way you can really manage that. However, that is very good if you're going to do email marketing. I have no problem with that if you're going to do email marketing. But it's really difficult to, you can't call on them. You can't actually, go and see them. But if you're going to do certain forms of prospecting, perfect. But I would say a minimum of around 800, maybe as low as 600, depending upon the size. 1,200 is best. So I'd say 8 to 1,200. That's what you need. The first issue is that most people don't have X dates. The second thing is that they just don't have enough prospects on their list. The third thing is that they have the wrong size of accounts on their list. There's 2 sides of the coin on this. The accounts on your prospect list are just too small. You're playing small. You're prospecting and wasting your valuable hours, your golden hours, on stuff that's just not going to put enough money in your pocket. So you define what is small. I can't define for you what's small. What is small for an agent in Los Angeles, it might not be small for an agent in South Dakota. It's just different for each person, each micro niche, each size agency. Smaller agencies might have, smaller accounts. It is. But you have to define what is small. And I would say get rid of everything that's on your list that's small. Get rid of it now, today. Today is a very good day to get rid of everything small on your prospect list. Why call on it? Why write it? Why set appointments on it? You don't want to write it. You don't want to get successful at writing small accounts. Can I just say that again? You don't want to get successful at writing small accounts? You don't. If you're an agency owner who doesn't do this for your producers, well, shame on you. Like, smack your hand. Shame on you, because you're not helping them and you're handcuffing them. If you are an agency owner that allows your agents to get successful at writing small accounts, smack your hand. Shame on you. How dare you let those producers get successful at going small? So first and foremost, push yourself a little bit in regards to the minimum revenue size of the prospects that you're going to work on. Get rid of the small stuff. Those just aren't for you. That's for everybody else who's got small thinking. You're just going to go after a certain size and above. Push yourself a little bit. Now, that's the one side of the coin that I find like to be the most problem, is that most people have small stuff that after all said and done, 3 years from now, they're going to be upset that they were prospecting on it. The other side, I think, can be an issue, and I see it sometimes when people start to think so big that they're way outside of their comfort zone, and that they're focused on like putting only stuff that's huge on their prospect list. Now, I love the idea of thinking big, and so I applaud you for that. However, there are accounts that are just too big for a smaller agency. You just don't have the manpower or the woman power or just people power to be able to service the account like it should be serviced. You might not have people like workers' compensation claims managers to be able to manage these for certain accounts. And if you just don't have the servicing team, then there are certain size of accounts that probably are just outside of your wheelhouse and are not going to be a good fit. You might be able to write them, but you're probably going to lose them in year 2 or year 3 just because you're not going to be able to provide the level of service that they need. And this, by the way, goes for not just small agencies, but also medium-sized agencies. I see it very often that you kind of like have too big of accounts, and frankly, it's hard, definitely harder to set appointments for big accounts. It's just harder to do that. Plus, if an account has like national presence where they got lots of offices all around different states, and then maybe even international presence, like, you can't do that. Like, you just can't write that. You're going to have a problem. And I actually feel like that is the only time, frankly, that's the only time the larger alphabet house has a leg up on you. Otherwise, I feel like it's a level playing field. There's no reason why smaller agents can't compete against some of these bigger agencies. It just depends upon your micro niche and what type of carriers you have. But you should be able to compete. But, having too many big accounts on your prospect list, if you also struggle with if you're someone that struggles with like depression from the standpoint that you're not writing enough and you start getting antsy, like if you're going after bigger accounts, you will always write more business in the long run, but you will set fewer appointments. You will write a lot fewer accounts, but you're going to make more money just because they are bigger. However, if you're somebody that needs to have like that multiple wins, that's probably not a good fit for you then. If you're at an agency that they need to see you writing policies or they're going to cut ties with you and fire you, well, that's probably not going to be a good fit for you. But if you're somebody that has the ability to make this decision going forward, then I would say you will be so much better off if you say, I only want to write about 5 or 6 new clients in the year, but you just sort of like almost 12x the size of the account that you want to go after. By the way, that's what you want to do. You want 12x. For those of you who are watching this on video, you can see the 12x behind me. If you want to 12x the size of the account that you're going after, then you only need to write just a few accounts for it to be a really good year. Like if somebody's writing $5,000 commission accounts, well, they have to write a bunch of accounts to hit $100,000. They got to write 20 accounts to hit $100,000. Well, if you're writing stuff that is, say, $75,000 of commission and above, and you write, 4 accounts in the year, you're doing really good. You're doing $300,000. $300,000, all you got was 4 clients. So going bigger with bigger accounts will always net you a whole lot more money than playing small. But again, it's the right and wrong answer for different people. Size of the agency, what types of business you're going after, the geographic territory that you're focused, all that. But again, I just want to focus on these main things. I really feel that agents that do this are writing 50% more, if not double to triple, versus agents that don't have a matured prospect list. It's that big. It's really that big. And if you're an agency owner who's trying to get your agency to scale and you're not doing this, shame on you. Do it right now. Don't hire people and expect them to figure it out. I mean, you're paying them. You are paying them. You better put it together yourself. You better hire somebody else to put it together for you. It's that important. And so I'm telling you, as an insurance producer yourself, if you don't have one right now, drop whatever you're doing and put something together. Plow through it, call, email, do whatever you have to do in order to gather the data so that you have a matured prospect list. It really is that important. Finally, I just want to sort of use this moment to tell you that the Permission Producer School is going to be kicking off again for our next cohort the week of October 6th. So October 6th, that week, we're going to have our next cohort of the Permission Producer School. Permission Producer School, it's where I teach all the curriculum from A to Z on everything that you need to do in order to build your book of business to $1 million or more. It really helps newer producers who, just don't really have a book of business yet, and they're trying to figure out what to do. It also is very helpful for producers who, maybe have like a $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 book, and they're trying to get to, say, $300,000. But I would say the Permission Producer School is normally geared towards producers who have $0 to $500,000 book. That's what I think really helps that particular producer. If you find yourself, in that particular position and you're trying to get to $1 million or more, there's just certain things you have to do that if you do this, you're going to get there. You're going to get there with persistence and consistency and having the right plan and strategy. You will get there. However, sales managers, agency owners could be really helpful as you're trying to build this for your agency. But also, if you're just a producer who says he's even got $1 million book of business and you're trying to restructure your whole process, well, the Permission Producer School could work for you. It is a 1-week course, virtual training where you come on for about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and I am teaching you everything from start to finish. We're going through the workbook that I provided for you so you can see exactly what it is that we're talking about, how to put it together. It's probably going to be around $697, give or take, to go through the actual week. But August 6th, that entire week, is going to be the next cohort of the Permission Producer School. If you have some questions about it, go to my website, permissiongroup.com. And at the top is Permission Producer School. Otherwise, just go to permissionproducerschool.com, and it'll take you directly to that page, permissionproducerschool.com. So again, my name is Charles Specht. I am the president and CEO of Permission Network, where I teach and train insurance agents just like you how to build a book of business of $1 million or more through signed broker of record letters. This is the Millionaire Insurance Producer Podcast.